All right, welcome to the Art of Unconditional Love, and I'm happy that you're here and that we continue with the very specific episode, Miracle Impulses, or Impulses in general, and which is a great possibility for discovery. And since we try to develop an art in unconditional love, this is one that you cannot miss. And when I'm saying that, it is really like that. It's like today we introduce a new segment into the meetings, which you could see as psychotherapy. And you say like, well, I don't need psychotherapy. I have my spiritual path. And then I say, yes, of course. That's great. That's great that you have a spiritual path. And so what does psychotherapy then have to do with awakening? Well, maybe more than you think. So you don't have to go back into your past to discover what kept you from loving your mother-in-law or whatever. It's like, that's not what this is about, but it has everything to do with what is moving you, what is coming up for healing. What is that? And why does it come up? And it's like, if you don't look at where you find yourself, you will not even see where you find yourself. You will not even see where you are. Even if it's a temporal place of limitation, sickness, pain and death, you still can wonder, how did I end up here? What happened? So the psychotherapy part is then, in fact, the discovery of the undoing that has to take place in order for you to say, get revealed where you actually abide. So it's all then about the undoing of what you thought was going on. So, and you can say that's quite a psychotherapy process. It is. So most of the talks that I'm having with the ones that are calling for help has to do with that. Not that I'm a psychotherapist, but see, it's like, if you recognize what is going on in your process of undoing, you see that you walk up against all kinds of things that you assume that's real, but doesn't have any reality. In fact, to make it really sharp, including yourself, your idea about yourself has in fact nothing to do with the reality of who you are. Now that's a curve. There's no psychotherapist that could deal with that. If you would say that, like, I want to become enlightened and I want to give up my self-identity, you'll probably have only one talk, and it won't take too long before you get like you're going to receive some more, maybe even institutional help. So to bring it really to myself, that almost happened to me. So I had an awakening experience where I discovered what I thought I was. I'm not that. That was just an incredible lie I believed in. Now, I have this beautiful experience of coming in communication, seeing how perfectly, what a perfect synchronicity is taking place in the universe. And how happy I become discovering that the flower that I called a flower before, this being that I called a flower before, is actually in total communication with me. I never expected that to happen. Now, when I presented this to a psychiatrist who was actually checking if I was doing all right, he was astonished about the occurrence, that I was so incredibly happy to communicate with the flower, but he also wanted to know how I did that. And not because he wanted to check out if I'm doing okay, but he saw the happiness that the communication brought. He was part of it, by the way. I didn't exclude him at all. I said, well, this is for you too. You don't have to. Anyway, so this is like, so what part, whatever it takes, you could say, to look at what is occurring in your awakening, and whatever help you can receive for that is welcome. So it's like, you do your exercises, you do your meditations, you take a look at, what am I thinking? What do I believe is my reality? What do I actually think love is? What is going on in my life? And is that really what I truly am? Or is there something else that I can experience? And yes, there is. So that's that motivated me to share this part of the impulses, because impulses, you are moved by impulses, whether they are miracle impulses or whether they are, say, human impulses, where you look for your security, when you recognize something that is familiar to you, you pick it up in order for your safety and comfort, to protect yourself from what you have created of yourself, what you have made of yourself. So that's why this can be a little bit confusing in the undoing process that is taking place. So here's your, say, free entrance into a psychotherapy session, and we're actually going to take a look at, so, levels of consciousness. How is that supposed to work? What is this subconscious? Where are these miracle impulses coming from? Where is revelation coming from? Where is my daily experience of myself coming from? How can I take a look at that it becomes more clear what is actually going on? Not that my understanding will bring me to the undoing of who I think I am, but it all helps a little bit in the direction. So it's like, it will inspire you to look beyond what is familiar to you, because what is familiar to you, you protect and defend. Now, if you stop doing that, what happens then? What happens when you don't defend it? What happens when you are open to receive a different way of looking at the whole thing, the whole story that you have made of yourself? So what is then going on? Now this is the part that we're looking at today. And yeah, so what is next? We have, of course, the meditation. So this is to do with the polarity that you think exists in your human existence, which is called love and fear. Are you afraid of love? Are you love itself? Are you afraid to be yourself and be the love, like the unconditional love that created you? Are you willing to extend that into infinity? Or are there some obstacles that you fall into, the fear of contraction, of taking it easy, being a little bit paranoid about, I'm not sure if you can trust this kind of thing? So this meditation is a miracle prayer. So what happens then when we do a miracle prayer is that the layer, you could say, the layer of consciousness that is so occupied with your daily life, that is so incredibly preoccupied with what is going on, if there's a hurricane category 25 coming to you or not, or anything that can happen, all these concerns and all these things can quiet down for a moment. It's like, wait, there's something else going on. There's a possibility of a deeper, you could say, a deeper impulse of love and recognition, where you actually see, what I thought was going on is actually not occurring. I feel gratitude, I feel comforted, I feel peace, but I don't think I come up with a reason for it. It is just happening. Well, this is actually where we enter into in the meditation. So that is what we're going to do now. It's like becoming still, so that this over-occupied, busy layer of concern and of fear and of anxiety and all these things quiet down, so that the impulses that come from a little bit deeper are coming up into our consciousness and actually bring us up out of our human concerns into a state of timelessness, of out of time for just a moment. And that feels as a total relief to be free of the burden of this world for just a moment. So that's the offering in the miracle prayer that we're going to do now. So we pre-made something. Michelle is sharing it in French, and it's just totally lovely. Afraid of love today. If I could realize but this today, salvation would be reached for all the world. This the decision not to be insane and to accept myself as God Himself, my Father and my Source, created me. This the determination not to be asleep in dreams of death, while truth remains forever living in the joy of life. And this the choice to recognize the self whom God created as the Son He loves and who remains my one reality. Father, your name is love, and so is mine. Such is the truth, and can the truth be changed by merely giving it another name? The name of fear is simply a mistake. Let me not be afraid of truth today.
Aujourd'hui. Si je pouvais seulement comprendre cela aujourd'hui, le salut serait atteint pour le monde entier. C'est la décision de ne pas être insane et de m'accepter comme Dieu lui-même. Mon Père et ma source m'a créé. C'est la détermination de ne pas être endormi dans des rêves de mort, tandis que la vérité demeure à jamais vivante dans la joie de l'amour. Et c'est le choix de reconnaître le soi que Dieu a créé, son Fils bien-aimé, et qui reste ma seule identité. Père, ton nom est amour, et le mien l'est aussi. Telle est la vérité. La vérité peut-elle être changée en lui donnant simplement un autre nom? Le nom de la peur est simplement une erreur. Je ne craindrai pas la vérité aujourd'hui.
So, thank you so much for joining. So, yeah, great start of our psychotherapy session. That's great. So, yeah, what next, huh? So it's like we have a little bit of introduction to do into an idea of looking at your consciousness. Because we all know the idea of consciousness. Huh? We are familiar with the idea of consciousness, and we say like, yeah, God is our consciousness. And of course it is. In reality it is, absolutely. But is that your experience, is then the question. It's like, well, maybe not all the time. Because you seem to be participating in a world. You perceive a world. So this is not the universe. It's not the totality of God. So there's a part of your consciousness that's engaging with something that is temporal. Now, temporalness doesn't exist in reality, right? So we know the basics, we know the concepts, but here it's like, okay, let's just take a look for to make it all very clear of what's going on, of how you could look at what is going on. And I used for that two things. It's like one is a model that I set up just to give you an overview. Like there are 4 layers, you could say, in your consciousness. There are 4 layers. Now it's not about being able to tell which one is which, but I made an overview and see a little bit of how that works, and I use it as an say almost like, yeah, this is a structure I can work with for just this session. There's no reality to any model. Reality doesn't work with models. But for the overview and your what is going on within you, this can be very revealing. Now that's one part. The model is one part. Then there's another part, and that's the 5th part of the Course in Miracles, and that is psychotherapy. That has the title Psychotherapy. That's like a little booklet, in fact, but it's included in this book because these contain all of the episodes. So psychotherapy, the beginning, is about the purpose and the process, and I want to listen to a part of it just to introduce you to looking at that in a certain way. And well, let's take one step at a time. So the first step is sharing with you the model that I illustrated a little bit, just as an illustration. Here's my model, and you can take a look at it, of course. So you see, I just go through it. Let's say we start with the iceberg here, the visible part. We perceive this. This is an objective reality of time and space. We know where this is. It has a location. This is probably not where you live, but you know exactly where this is. So it's located. You have an idea about it. So it's an object, it's floating, it has certain characteristics, it's floating. Part of it is above the water, part of it is under the water. Now this part, you could say like, this is all I see, and I believe this to be my daily life reality, all right? It's like consciousness of your daily existence. Self-identity, I can go there by plane, I can walk around there, take my boat and go to the icebergs and touch them. They are cold because they're icy, they have certain characteristics. And and I'm in a certain sense in a relationship with that too. When I am in the water in the boat, I float on the water, the water is carrying me, and I put on warm clothes so that I won't be cold. So I make sure that my comfort and safety is taken care of. I let everyone know where I am when I'm discovering my iceberg. Well, this is like a human being's consciousness of daily existence. And for you, before you discovered there was something else, because now of course you already made a step, but before you discovered there was something else, you thought like, this is my life, this is what I am, this is what is really happening, I'm all part of it, I'm completely included in this, this is everything, wow, this is my world, I love it, I hate it, I think it's great, it's awful, it's fantastic, it's so limited, it's so expanded, it is so rich, it's so poor, it's so all of this, like it is a world of opposites, it's a world of duality. There can be war, there can be peace, there can be rain, there can be snow, there can be all kinds of things, and it changes really quick altogether. I have ideas about this world too. I think about this world, I have concerns about this world, and all that. So that all takes place in this layer, the middle layer that I put up here in the gray with the icebergs. And now you see there's more. So now in this daily experience, I'm actually looking for things. I always perceive, in fact, a lack. I have a desire, I have a need, I want to make sure that I am who I think I am. I want that to be confirmed. And I want to have a really good life. I want to get my needs fulfilled. So I'm looking for that. Now, this part, consciousness of my daily existence, and using part of my mind for that is very, inventive, you could say. So it will get what it wants. It will get what it wants in a certain sense, to a certain degree. So, for instance, in order for the continuation of my self-identity, I allow, for instance, my sexual impulses to come up for at least reproduction, maybe even for fun, or for gratification, or for who knows what. Like these impulses, my desires, my needs, and I want to be confirmed, I want to be loved, I want to do all these things. I want to make sure that my life is a pretty good one. I want to have sufficient material to work with, you could say, to have some fun, some pleasure. I'm looking for pleasure, in fact. I'm looking for comfort, safety, pleasure, entertainment, you name it, all these things. So I use my subconscious, my superficial subconscious for that. So in other words, I get impulses. Suddenly I really feel like I should travel. Suddenly I really feel I should start a relationship. Suddenly I feel I gotta build a fence around my house or put some sandbags in front of my door. I feel that. It's like there's a need, there's a fear impulse, or who knows what kind of impulse that pushes me to do that. I need to defend myself. I feel this anger suddenly coming up in me, and I want to use that to defend myself, for my own safety and comfort, for my space, defending my space. Now this is my subconscious, superficial part of my consciousness, where this comes up. And with that, those two together, I can say, live my human life. I can live my human life. I try to do my best to have an almost like harmonious kind of setup. I try to do my best for that. I certainly will defend it, and I will do anything to maintain that. This is in fact the mechanical part of my human existence. Now that didn't work for you. That's why you're here. Like this was not working out. In some kind of way it was not working out. So you splashed in the water, in ice cold water, and you woke up, or suddenly something happened and you saw like, no, this cannot be it. No, there has to be something else. And maybe you started doing meditation. So when you meditate, the subconscious superficial level quiets down, as well as your concerns for daily existence. It quiets down. So what happens when this quiets down, in fact, it is like suddenly deeper impulses can come into your consciousness. And like miracle ready, I said here. So I can have these impulses suddenly come into my awareness, and actually lifting myself up into a moment of communication, where I forget about this part in totality for just a moment, and I feel my connectedness with my brother and God, and I experience a different kind of fulfillment that I actually was looking for. Now, this isn't continuous. So it wasn't just a miracle impulse. Temporarily, I got myself into temporarily I got myself out of the sphere of my human existence. I sank a little deeper into my consciousness, where the miracle impulses are. You could say almost like old memories are, but they are actually bringing me into a whole different experience altogether. I have put them away for a long time because I was so occupied with my existence that they did not have a chance. Before these ones could come up, I already grabbed one of the impulses out of the superficial level of my consciousness. For instance, gratification. For instance, my say anger or my fear or these are just ready to be grabbed, you could say, because they're on such a superficial level, so close to your consciousness. So easily they come to that. They come into your consciousness and you think, okay, at least now I know this and that. But the miracle impulses are below that. They are deep down in your memory, because in fact the whole undoing of these miracle impulses, of these miracles, are within your own memory. They are there for a reason. They are in your subconscious for a reason, and that is, they come up and they lift you out. They are available to you for healing, for in fact you are reuniting with a place that you've never left. But since these ideas of temporalness and existence came in between, there seemed to be like a division between the two. But in fact, it is nothing but it will bring you back into, in fact, it brings you into this experience of God. So the miracles, that's why we put so much emphasis on miracles and miracle principles and all this. It's like, that is really something else, because these miracle impulses need to come up into your awareness and lift you out of where you find yourself, for your own healing and for the recognition of your brother as one with you, because this is always like an interrelationship, interpersonal relationship, that you recognize God. You give this to your brother, you could say. By accepting it for yourself, you give it to your brother. But there's an healing factor related to it. So in fact, this is the tool in which you help each other by practicing the miracle healing. And you don't know how to do that. We'll come to that later. You don't know how to do that and when, because you're still a bit occupied with the middle level of existence. So you think like, I feel these impulses. I actually can feel them coming up and they lift me out of my situation. Now I love to give that to my brother in some kind of way that he can, get it too, or we can share it, basically. That's where it comes down to. We can share it. Now how to do that and when? You need instruction, you need guidance in order to do that. But it is an essential step in the healing and the return into your consciousness of your super consciousness, because that was another part. So that's here. So it's like your super consciousness is super consciousness is the communication part that communicates as one, because it is one. It's God, it's self, it's I am, it's soul, it's revelation. It is literally revelation. So in your existence, as you can see in the middle, these middle layers, in your existence, it can happen that you experience revelation. One way, I said here on this arrow, it's like one way from God to you. In your daily experience, suddenly there's a whambo, there's an experience of revelation. And that is like an one-way, totally intimate, incredible, overwhelming, you could say, overwhelming experience of communication with your source. And that's gonna do something with you, but you're not able, like you wouldn't be able to express it. Just like the book of Revelation in the Bible, you're just not, that you can write it down, but is it readable? For some, maybe it is, but still, it's not the experience of the revelation itself. So here it is too for me to, like, how can I express my revelation? I carry it with me. It happened to me. It happens to me. It's not that it's over. Like, it happens to me. The first revelation that I consciously received was one that turned my world upside down. Now, what can I say about that? Well, I can say, like, well, now I can see the flower as a representation of the whole universe, and I can directly communicate with it. But what does that tell you? So this is then ask for it yourself. Be open. Say, work these miracle moments for yourself. Like, ask for which miracle to perform when. And in fact, offer it. When you experience it, you offer it to your brother. It's an expression of love. It can be a thought. It can be an action. It can be, who knows in what form it will come to you. It will come to you in a way that it actually is going to work, but you're not the determiner of when and how. So it's like it's a spontaneous event that happens just by you allowing it, and by you quieting down the middle levels, you could say, of existence and the occupation with that. So this is our psychotherapy. It's like, no. So forget about this world for just a moment. Relax, sit back and relax. Now something can happen, and be patient. You're not doing it, it's going to be given to you. Well, that's the hardest thing for someone who's so familiar with the middle level of action, reaction, impulse, protect, attack, defend, and all this. It's like you're so busy in doing, and this is a matter of allowing and being, because what is already there, and you don't need to do anything for it. Now that's so great. That makes it doable. All right, so maybe it's time for our little psychotherapy instruction. I have to look it up. It is from the book, like I said, from A Course in Miracles, Volume 5, Psychotherapy, and A Course in Miracles, Urtext Manuscripts, Complete 7-volume combined edition, Volume 5, Psychotherapy, Purpose, Process and Practice. Part 1, An Introduction to Psychotherapy. Psychotherapy is the only form of therapy there is. Since only the mind can be sick, only the mind can be healed. Only the mind is in need of healing. This does not appear to be the case, for the manifestations of this world seem real indeed. Psychotherapy is necessary so that an individual can begin to question his reality. Sometimes he is able to start to open his mind without formal help. But even then, it is always some change in his perception or interpersonal relationships that enable him to do so. Sometimes he needs a more structured, extended relationship with an official therapist. Either way, the task is the same. The patient must be helped to change his mind about the reality of illusions. Part 2. The purpose of psychotherapy. A. Introduction. Very simply, the purpose of psychotherapy is to remove the blocks to truth. Its aim is to aid the patient in abandoning his fixed delusional system and to begin to reconsider the spurious cause and effect relationship on which it rests. No one in this world escapes fear, but everyone can consider its causes and learn to evaluate them correctly. God has given everyone a teacher whose wisdom and help far exceed whatever contributions an earthly therapist can provide. Yet there are times and situations in which the patient-therapist relationship becomes the means through which he offers his greater gifts to both. What better purpose could any relationship have than to invite the Holy Spirit to enter into it and give it his own great gift of rejoicing? What higher goal could there be for anyone than to learn to call upon God and hear his answer? And what more transcendent aim can there be than to recall the way, the truth, and the life, and to remember God? To help in this is the proper purpose of psychotherapy. Could anything be holier? For psychotherapy, correctly understood, teaches forgiveness and helps the patient to recognize and accept it. And in his teaching is the therapist forgiven with him. Everyone who needs help, regardless of the form of his distress, is attacking himself, and his peace of mind is suffering in consequence. These tendencies are often described as self-destructive, and the patient often regards them in that way himself. What he does not realize and needs to learn is that this self, which can attack and be attacked as well, is a concept he made up. Further, he cherished it, defends it, and is sometimes even willing to sacrifice his life on behalf of it. For he regards it as himself. This self he sees as being acted on, reacting to external forces as they demand and helpless in the power of the world. Psychotherapy then must restore to his awareness the ability to make his own decisions. He must become willing to reverse his thinking and to understand that what he thought projected its effects on him were made by his projections on the world. The world he sees does therefore not exist. Until this is at least in part accepted, the patient cannot see himself as really capable of making decisions, and he will fight against his freedom because he thinks that it is slavery. The patient need not think of truth as God in order to make progress in salvation, but he must begin to separate truth from illusion, recognizing that they are not the same and becoming increasingly willing to see illusions as illusions and to accept the truth as true. His teacher will take him on from there as far as he is ready to go. Psychotherapy can only save him time. The Holy Spirit uses time as he thinks best, and he is never wrong. Psychotherapy under his direction is one of the means he uses to save time and to prepare additional teachers for his work. There is no end to the help that he begins and he directs. By whatever routes he chooses, all psychotherapy leads to God in the end. But that's up to him. We are all his psychotherapists, for he would have us all be healed in him. Part 3. The process of psychotherapy. A. An introduction. Psychotherapy is a process that changes the view of the self. At best, this new self is a more beneficent self-concept, but psychotherapy can hardly be expected to establish reality. That is not its function. If it can make way for reality, it has achieved its ultimate success. Its whole function in the end is to help the patient deal with one fundamental error, the belief that anger brings him something he really wants, and that by justifying attack he is protecting himself. To whatever extent he comes to realize that this is mistaken, to that extent is he truly saved. Patients do not enter the therapeutic relationship with this goal in mind. On the contrary, Such concepts mean little to them, or they would not need help. Their aim is to be able to retain their self-concept exactly as it is, but without the suffering that it entails. Their whole equilibrium rests on the insane belief that this is possible. And because to the sane mind it is so clearly impossible, that what they seek is magic. In illusions, the impossible is easily accomplished, but only at the cost of making illusions true. The patient has already paid his price. Now he wants a better illusion. At the beginning, then, the patient's goal and the therapist's are at variance. The therapist, as well as the patient, may cherish false self-concept, but their respective perception of improvement still must differ. The patient hopes to learn how to get the changes he wants without changing his self-concept to any significant extent. He hopes, in fact, to stabilize it sufficiently to include within it the magical powers he seeks in psychotherapy. He wants to make the vulnerable invulnerable and the finite limitless. The self he sees is his God, and he seeks only to serve it better. Regardless of how advanced the therapist himself may be, he must want to change the patient's self-concept in some way that he believes is real. The task of therapy is one of reconciling these differences. Hopefully, both will learn to give up their original goals, for it is only in relationships that salvation can be found. At the beginning, it is inevitable that patients and therapists alike accept unrealistic goals not completely free of magical overtones. They are finally giving up in the minds of both. Section B. The limits on psychotherapy. Yet the ideal outcome is rarely achieved, but psychotherapy begins with the realization that healing is of the mind. And in psychotherapy, those who have come together who believe this, it may be they will not get much further, for no one learns beyond his own readiness. Yet levels of readiness change, and when the therapist or patient has reached the next one, there will be a relationship held out to them that meets the changing need. Perhaps they will come together again and advance in the same relationship, making it holier. Or perhaps each of them will enter into another commitment. Be assured of this, each will progress. Retrogression is temporary. The overall direction is one of progress toward the truth. Psychotherapy itself cannot be creative. This is one of the errors which the ego fosters, that it is capable of true change and therefore of true creativity. When we speak of the saving illusion or the final dream, this is not what we mean, but there's the ego's last defense. Resistance is its way of looking at things, its interpretation of progress and growth. These interpretations will be wrong of necessity because they are delusional. The changes the ego seeks to make are not really changes, but they are but deeper shadows or perhaps different cloud patterns. Yet what is made of nothingness cannot be called new or different. Illusions are illusions. Truth is truth. Resistance, as defined here, can be characteristic of the therapist as well as of the patient. Either way, it sets a limit on psychotherapy because it restricts its aim. Nor can the Holy Spirit fight against the intrusions of the ego on the therapeutic process. But he will wait, and his patience is infinite. His goal is wholly undivided, always. Whatever resolutions patients and therapists reach in connection with their own divergent goals, they cannot become completely reconciled as one until they join with his. Only then is all conflict over, for only then can there be certainty. Ideally, psychotherapy is a series of encounters in which brothers meet to bless each other and to receive the peace of God. And this will one day come to pass for every patient on the face of this earth. For who except a patient could possibly have come here? The therapist is only a somewhat more specialized teacher of God. He learns through teaching, and the more advanced he is, the more he teaches and the more he learns. But whatever stage he is in, there are patients who need him just that way. They cannot take more than he can give for now, yet they both will find sanity at last. Section C. Yeah, this is great information. For me to hear this again, it's like I read it and I listened to it, sure. But to actually give it a place in what is occurring, this is more useful than you think. And why am I saying that? Because of my experience with it. It is like this. It's like the changes that you have allowed, the new way of looking at things that you have allowed for yourself is in fact, say, opening something up for you in order, for instance, you might be getting in touch with certain ones where you can share it with what actually is occurring, or people that are exactly in the same situation that you were just a moment ago come to you kind of out of the blue, asking for help or asking for just a little assurance or a little help to push them or to help them in a certain direction, to give them the trust that it's okay what is occurring, in fact to offer that comfort. So that is really amazing. So if you go through changes where you really in fact process something that shifted for you, that is going to be so-called the material you will work with. People will come to you with say very much comparable situations that you just got, so to speak, that you just saw like you never saw before, and now you can share it. Now this is in fact what is being shared in the beginning of this chapter, psychotherapy. It's like we're all psychotherapists, like one helps the other. It's not that we have a degree in psychotherapy or that we are doing all of this. No, it's like just be honest in what you are, what you just went through, of extend the certainty that whatever seems to be occurring is all part of the process. You know, like this, it will be given how to respond. Now this is helpful. In the end, as it says here too, as one of the limits of psychotherapy, and this is good also to talk about, is like it isn't creative. So it's not capable of creating changes, to create in the likeness of the Father. Now this has everything to do with, in fact, the release of self-identity continuously, and to, in fact, come to Christ vision. By doing that, not necessarily entering into knowledge or into Christ vision, but getting to the point where you are allowing yourself to be undone and staying in that phase, you could say, staying in that process. It's like, no, it's not this, and allowing these changes to take place while they are actually not changes at all. It's more like, oh, I don't have to do that. I don't have to do that. Oh, I did this before, but I don't have to do that anymore. So it's like, see, that's not creative, but it's certainly liberating for you, because you have walked around with the idea that you had to do them. That's why you did them. The same as any kind of human idea of continuation of the existence, defending, attacking, reproducing even, recreating. This is what we saw in Mary Baker's book too, like the Science and Health. It's like she says it too. It's like, why would you stay in the cycle of reproduction and recreation? Why do you think you need to do that? Like, well, in fact, in the undoing of this all, I see that there's no necessity to do that at all. No, there's a whole different story going on that has nothing to do with this superficial level. This part will be undone because it's temporal. Now I can have different experiences. I'm not focused, like my focus is not on sustainability, is not focused on reproduction or recreation. I'm not looking for it here any longer, because I know that is not what true joy or happiness is. No, I allow the miracle impulses to come up and take me out of any kind of limitation that I'm experiencing, returning me back into an holy instant in which I experience light and love. That's what I want in my consciousness. That's what I would love to receive on a continuing basis. And more and getting out of the way with my ideas about how everything should look on the superficial level of consciousness, in fact. So I allow a revelation to come to me whenever that is given. I allow miracle impulses to flow through me and give them away when I'm inspired to do that. Now this is in fact the path that we're on. You will learn this. You will do this. So this now makes a bit more sense. It's like communication is the upper level. It's always from God into my consciousness and receiving that. Like I'm the instrument, God is the air. If I'm a flute, God is the air by which the sound will resound. Like that is given to me. God is my inspiration. Now this superficial subconscious level connected to my daily existence is something that shifts and changes, that in fact is losing its capacity to identify me. By my miracle impulses from a deeper level in my subconscious, is it being brought into my consciousness more and more and more. I in fact extend this holy instant. I'm only focused on a holy instant with my brothers, with myself, with God, like having that as my dedication. My dedication is in fact to receiving, to experiencing holy instances in which I can feel the love of God, and I feel the fulfillment, I feel the gratitude that I am. So this is a miracle principles. I like to share this. Miracles praise God through men. They praise God by honoring His creations, affirming their perfection. They heal because they deny body identification and affirm soul identification. By perceiving the spirit, they adjust the levels and see them in proper alignment. This places the spirit at the center, where souls can communicate directly. Like, okay, that's a miracle principle. Now, that doesn't mean that you know exactly what this says right away, but when you experience a miracle, it makes total sense. Now this is the morning prayer you should start your day with. Like, you will see miracles through your hands, through me, Jesus says. You should begin each day with the prayer, help me to perform whatever miracles you want of me today. Help me to perform whatever miracles you want of me today. Now, revelations we were talking about, like the one-way love experience from God to you. Revelations induce complete but temporary suspension of doubt and fear. Suddenly doubt and fear is gone. You feel so much certainty that you want to stay there forever. They represent the original form of communication between God and His souls, before the intrusion of fire and ice made this possible. it should be noted that they involve an extremely personal sense of closeness to creation, which man tries to find in sexual relationships. This confusion is responsible for the depression and fear which are often associated with sex. Now see, this is the part, like the sexual impulses versus miracle impulses, is something we come back to in, I think, in a couple of episodes. We will come back to that. So what I'm doing now is just the introduction to the idea of impulses, so that you can relate to it, or have this way of looking at it. I thought that was really helpful in the sense of it gives you a quick overview of what is happening in your consciousness, what you recognize as, or where does what come from. Miracles come from the subconscious. A revelation is from, say, the superconsciousness, directly from God to me.